ADAPT 2030 Mini Ice Age Conversations covers changes in our climate due to a new and intensifying grand solar minimum. In the media, overlooking, downplaying, or burying cold weather changes occurring on our planet. This is in order to keep the global warming agenda steaming full speed ahead. I do this podcast and radio program because we need to begin conversations on how to adapt our food growing strategies long before 2030 as agricultural zones shift, affecting global crop output, but very few mainstream media outlets are talking about the most important issue of our time, cold weather crop losses. Our sun is going through a 400-year cycle, which has effects on our weather patterns as our magnetosphere weakens and the jet streams go out of flow. It's not CO2, it's not you, it's the sun. Are you ready to thrive in the grand solar minimum? Then join me for Mini Ice Age Conversations. I'm your host, David DuByne. Good afternoon, everyone. As I'm always trying to bring you the newest with protocols in the blockchain to tokenize commodities as we move forward into the grand solar minimum, when grains become so expensive that it is the most expensive commodity on our planet, which will usurp oil and energy. Food we need to eat every day. It's going to become the most valuable commodity. Now, in my search over the last 2 years of seeing the future, how we're going to buy, sell, and trade grains, the last part that I've finally been looking for is here, the arbitration. It's great to lock things up in smart contracts before 60,000 tons of wheat moves out of Kansas. But if it arrives at port and it's refused, at that point, where's the arbitration going to come from? And this was what was talked about last year during all the ICOs and tokenizing commodities was, if there's a problem, where's the dispute resolution going to come in? Who's going to be in charge of that? And then how is that smart contract going to execute back to the buyer or seller with the initial funds locked up in that? Well, we finally have the answer. And I think this is the piece of the puzzle that is going to set in motion the entire ecosystem of tokenizing commodities in smart contracts moving forward with grain deliveries. Today I have with me CEO of Oath Protocol, Yin Xu. He was mobile app development at Marshfield Clinic Research Foundation, also tech lead at Trip.com, startup in Silicon Valley, voted best app of the year. Now you got to realize in both of these industries there's a lot of disputes and a lot of dispute resolution circling inside the sphere. Now he's also contributed to projects and dApps with smart contracts, Ether Wallet. We wanted to run your time through today. If we have a problem with deliveries, how is this really going to work out? Like I said, I believe it's the final piece, and we're going to put this full triangle together moving forward. So, Yin, I appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks. And let me give you a quick introduction about my background. I moved to U.S. since 2006 and finished my bachelor degree in computer science. Then I was being a researcher in one of the biggest clinic foundation in Wisconsin. I was helping actually doctors to do development in mobile technology, big data. Project I helped with, I actually developed by myself called Heart Health. People using the mobile app to analyze their disease or heart issues. And luckily we got my app on my project got sent to a competition called Heart Health. We got the first place. So that's how I got attention from Silicon Valley. So I got a lot of offers in different tech company. And I decided to go with a company. Back in days, they called GoGoBot. Since 2015, I think we changed our name to Trip.com. Last year, we got acquired by Ctrip.com. Then I left the company and was trying to start another blockchain project because, blockchain was still one of the most important and the newest technology in the world. We have actually a very big passion about it, no matter how the market is moving and how the market is changing. But I still think that's the technology for the future. But back in days, there's a lot of different projects already. Before we actually start this project, we spent a couple months on researching about which area will be very useful, and at the same time, still not too much people are exploring. So we found blockchain governance is one big topic everybody talks about, but not yet too much people had spent time on it, like Dave said. So I think this is one of the most important missing piece at this moment, and it's also a very infrastructure level. So I think with the arbitration field resolution, I think it will be very, very helpful.
Before we take the next step, I wanted to explain what Oath is. On the website here, oathprotocol.com, and also oaths.io, that's OATHS.io. Explained on the site there is it's a dispute resolution protocol modeled on common law jury system that utilizes blockchain, cryptographic algorithms, and random algorithms associated with categories that allows resolution in smart contract disputes. And that's really what it's going to be all about moving through the forward. So can you delve us in there and take a deeper dive explaining what that is?
Let me give you a quick introduction of governance. I think there's several different ways we actually found which governance can be applied on blockchain. For instance, there's one example we can take a look into it. It's from EOS. EOS is one of the biggest public chains in the world. They are pretty advanced, I have to say. They have their own arbitration system called ECAF. But ECAF is using one very typical arbitration way, which is using arbitrators. They have 6 arbitrators, but every single one of them are very legal or law experts to help cases or help different situations to solve the disputes. As you can see, by using arbitrators or by using experts, the cost is going to be very, very high. And also, since there's only a few of them, every case they can only assign 1 or 2 arbitrators to a case. And that means those 1 or 2 people going to be the judge of your case. So it's a little bit centralized. But the good thing is like they are experts, so they might provide you professional opinions or whatever. But at the same time, as a 1 person or 1 or 2 person, it's highly likely they could get influenced or get affected by the outside, by external. But we are using another way, which like in the US, the jury system. Maybe some of you guys know the jury system because in the US, if you go to a court, if there's a jury group there, the judge himself is usually not the one to do the verdict. The jury group will give the result of you are guilty or not. But also interestingly, the jury group is formatted by 7 or 12 randomly selected citizens from the US. As long as you are over 21 and as long as you are not in a special job such as a military or judge, you will have your chance to be selected as the jury. As you can imagine, it's already very decentralized because all those people are randomly selected and they are not required to be experts in any area. You could be a housewife, you could be a teacher, you could be a student to get selected. So this is very interesting. We think by applying blockchain technology on it, we can not only just helping with disputes, but also improving a lot of issues in current jury system. For instance, all the jury's identity will be encrypted on blockchain. Then it's not very easy. It's even nearly impossible to find out who they are and get them paid or get them influenced. And also for the jury group, in most cases, they make decisions together. So that means some of them, if they don't have very strong knowledge, they could get affected or they get influenced inside of the jury group. On blockchain, we ask all the juries to vote independently, so they have to give their own judgment no matter what. And also in real life, there's no reward system, so pretty much you join for your civil duty. But on the blockchain, it's pretty clear we will be rewarding them by the tokens, so they can ideally it could even be their full-time job to join as the juries, so they can get paid and get their voice out. We are using some other like algorithms to helping by selecting juries. It's not just pure random. We use something called categorized random algorithm. Every time when a jury applying for the jury position, they will have to go through the KYC, make sure they are the real people, and also they have to provide their information of the categories. By categories, I mean we tag people into several different ways. So for instance, like their gender, their age, their nationalities, their language, simply because we believe similar people have same bias. So for instance, people from the financial backgrounds, people from the technology backgrounds may have different like bias. So we want the jury group to be as variety as possible. So they all have different backgrounds, they're coming from a different area, from different gender, different age or whatever. And then the result will be slightly more fair than just randomly selecting people. And also we use something core algorithm called the relational attributes. Simple explanation is it's networks. For instance, if we have 5 friends who joined one case as the juries, but consecutively in the continuously next case, if one of us got selected, the other one, since we are in the same network, and they are nearly impossible to get selected unless we have no jury at all. So that prevents people from knowing each other and start like collusions. We are trying to use some technology to prevent cheating from happening, but there's no perfect system. So we should just only increase the cost of cheatings or make it harder and harder. So that's some small details about our system.
Now, to add on top of that, remember, Oath provides an interface for these smart contracts and programming languages. So all the smart contracts that are written through the Oath interface are automatically secured by this smart arbitration plan. Now, we can flip the words jurors and arbitrators in between each other, because that's what it is all about, is dispute arbitration. This is the last key. Somebody has a problem. Well, who's going to really take care of that independently? That's not going to be in a biased situation. Hey, you're holding my wheat offshore. Well, if it comes to this, and the smart contracts have been set up through such protocols, this is the way forward. Now, when we take a look into the white paper that's out right now, there's many different uses for this type of smart contract setup. We got blockchain e-commerce disputes, news verification, blockchain insurance, and the list goes on and on. Now, one thing that really intrigued me right away was when I saw this news verification. I wanted to run into that for a moment, because not only is the political news that we're seeing, but the weather news and all these voices, it seems they're very lopsided. So I'm curious, in the news verification, is it just the most voices that wins, or how do you dispute truly what's the true news, what's the fake news, what's the biased news? Because just looking into the U.S., 90% of the news is negative Trump, 10% is pro-Trump. When you look into global warming, global cooling, 90% of it's IPCC-driven CO2 climate change, but the other 10, now 15 or 20%, are talking about changes in the sun. The sun drives our climate. The sun's causing the climate change on multi-century cycles, not CO2. So where does this come into crowd verify news, if you will, and other ways that we can use this for daily life type of use for anything where there's a dispute?
Back to the news question. This is actually originally, after we started this project, we've been doing a lot of researches. This idea actually coming from a professor from Renmin University of China. He was a professor in news major. I think he was the dean. But he came to us asking us, hey, do you guys think this project can be used in news area? Because they are also trying to fix the fake news. It's not just happening in the US, it's also, I think it's happening worldwide. Simply because on the internet, the voice is spreading so fast. When the fake news got spread, simply because they have some hook in it. Either it's a clickbait, or either the information is very attractive, not attractive in the good way, but so for us, after the discussion with the professor, we realized by using our system, we actually can provide some values for fixing the fake news. So from the professor, the concept is, in most cases, regular person or whoever the person got involved in those situations has the most important piece of that situation. Not that much people can get their voice into the news sites, onto the media, or whatever. So we are inviting them to providing whichever the information they know. And then we are inviting all of the audience to do the votings to say, do you trust them or do you not trust them? Because they have to provide as much as evidence as possible. For instance, if I'm a scientist doing a lot of researches, I'm providing as much evidence about the sun or the CO2 or whatever, whichever the area I believe causing the climate change. I have to present as much as possible and in the same channel. So for instance, if we have a news, news topics about climate change, they have to provide as much as possible. So all the regular audience who's watching or who's reading the news should give their trust into whichever evidence, because there's always two sides on one situation or one factor. So I think this will help at least getting people knowing all those small evidence, because if you are trying to judge a news as real or fake, you have to see from the both sides. From the people who trust it, why they trust it, and from the people who doesn't trust it and why they are not trusting it. So they have to provide evidences. They have to provide their own informations. It's not I'm the person, I say, hey, this is a fake news, or I say it's a real news. So it should be judged by the entire society. Be honest, not every single news has, mathematics, has a right answer. It's actually being argued. It should be discussed by the entire society. So that's actually how we think this crowdsourced arbitration system can help, inviting people to providing evidence for the news they believe on whichever side, and also inviting the audience to, I don't know if that would like give the results, give the news like a judgment right away, but at least like providing more information for the audience to view under the same channel so they can decide whichever way they believe it more. In most cases, the more evidence come up, the fact will show up, the truth will show up sooner.
So the findings that come out, regardless of whether it's the insurance arbitration or whether it be the news arbitration or e-commerce, any of these types, does this go back publicly onto the blockchain where it can be seen unaltered? And would this be a way for people to preserve and encapsulate what is unaltered information right now into the blockchain?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So that's actually why blockchain technology is very useful in our project, because all the information, when you provide it, it will be recorded and saved on the chain. So let's say whichever the scientist providing this information, and it will be for one use or one factor, it will be saved on the blockchain. So it's not like the information will be kept there, and so people will be publicly review it. It's not like something you can change it very easily. So that means like they have to provide the information they actually believe the most, because otherwise you will always have the records.
All right, great. So you can see how this blockchain can also be utilized to preserve what is unaltered climate data or what is said right now about predictives for the grand solar minimum, food price rises, economic downturns due to people diverting all of their spending from the disposable economy right over into food prices. Now, when we're talking about this dispute resolution, again, Yin talked about there being a reward for correct arbitration. So coming out into correctly voting for a decision, there's a reward for that. So the people who are always correctly judging the situation and analyzing it and coming up with the right outcome for it, there seems to be a token reward. So the points, I'm not sure exactly, how many tokens are earned for the arbitration duty, because I know in your initial coin offering in this ICO, you're pushing up, 10 billion tokens? But those are for native use inside the ecosystem, and there's a breakdown on how they're going to be distributed. And there's a very small amount that's used for marketing and running the ICO. The rest of it is to keep the ecosystem up and moving to be able to pay out to persons who are involved with this. Now, we've seen a few other predictive programs here launched on the net as well. Augur, that's one that comes right to mind, is the predictives there. So if you guess the outcome, and they're running everything from stock prices to cryptocurrency prices to election outcomes or whatever it is, and if you predict correctly, you're also rewarded inside there. So people are trying to always put predictions out inside these new types of platforms, because the more correct you are at predicting, the more reward you get. So again, you talked about people are really trying to make livings now going into these predictive blockchain protocols and putting their votes in on what will happen with something through the next few hours, something through the next few days, through the next few months. And every time they hit it correctly, not only they raised up levels of trustworthiness because they seem to see it correctly, so it's strictly a numbers game at that point.
I want to give a quick explanation between us and the prediction market. I think the major difference for us is like for prediction market, they are predicting the future, whenever happen tomorrow, next hour, or whenever. But for us, whoever is joining our system, the jury system, they are actually judge the past. This is a very big difference, and they are, in most cases, they are trying to gamble for the future. They are trying to predict, if it's going to rain next hour or not. But for our jury, they are trying to use their sense or their understanding of some cases, of some situation to provide the judgment. So I think that's a major difference. And also, for prediction market, usually like you have to stake your money. Be honest, it's a gamble system. So you stake, the more money you stake, and the more reward you will get. But for our system, everyone has only one vote, and they don't have to have any of our token to be a jury or to join a case. Once they sign up, and they are all randomly selected, so it's not like they can join publicly. In that case, they are not actually joining. They are not just trying to make money. They are, first of all, they are trying to join the case, providing their knowledge or providing their sense about cases. But as a reward, they will get paid. So let's talk about reward. Actually, in our system, we don't call them right or wrong. Actually, we call them voting for majority or minority. If you are voting in a minority group, that doesn't necessarily mean you are wrong. But since we actually incentivize people to provide the right judgment or right voting on the majority side, because that's the fairest system at this moment. So majority wins the minority. So if in one case your voting is in the majority group, you will get your reward. But also our reward is not evenly divided. We have another system called a credit level. It's like a reputation system for all the juries. It's a big mathematics equation. So, for instance, the jury credit will be calculated by how many cases they joined and what's their voting accuracy and what's their responding time. Their responding time is important too. And also, and how many tokens they have and how long have they had it. There's a few different factors, but all those information can be publicly viewed on the blockchain because all those information is recorded on the chain. So if people has questions, they can just run the equation. So by credit level, it's actually a measurement for jury's expertise. You don't have to be a lawyer to be an expert, a very professional jury. You have your experience, you have your knowledge, you have your training, and you don't have to be a lawyer. So in that case, our reward is divided based on their credit level. So for instance, if Dave, you are level 10 jury and I'm level 1, you probably get like 10 times more reward than I do. So we incentivize people to join more cases and also get their level higher. In the long term, they will get more rewards. In our token system, the most tokens we reserve to maintain and reward the juries. Because jury is not just getting rewarded by voting for cases, they are also getting rewarded by maintaining the entire community. For instance, for the jury application, we're actually planning to leave those applications to be viewed by other juries with a certain amount of credit level. So they will be reviewing those like a new jury application. They will decide if they pass the test or they are not pass the test. So it's not just votings, but also maintaining the community, the jury community is important.
All right, so moving along here, a couple more questions. Talking about response times for this. Now, for me in the personal situation, let's say we send a breakbark ship of 60,000 tons of Kansas 2020 hard red winter wheat harvest over to a different country across the sea. There's some dispute there. The ploy is refuse a shipment at the port, and then they try to bargain down the price because they know you're spending $25,000 a day to keep that ship anchored offshore there. How quickly can this be done? Because somebody like myself losing $25,000 a day to keep a ship offshore over there, you still need to maintain the crew. Is there a fast track option, or what's the the general timeline for the response time, if you will, in these urgent cases compared to something that could be just a regular type of case that doesn't have the urgency? There's two different sets of parallel here. Super urgent, got to take care of it like by this minute, or something that could be strung out over a week or two.
It's actually an existing problem in our current legal system because sometimes it takes a very long time, and in a lot of cases it could take even months to get one judgment or whatever. But in our system, initially we designed the entire case should take about 8 days to finish. 1 day for jury selections, for juries to accept all the case they got selected, and there will be like 5 days for evidence period, so you providing the evidences, and also there's 2 days for jury to do the votings. But Dave mentioned if there's any urgent case, we actually open the configuration. When we design the system, we are trying to do as flexible as possible. So we leave a lot of configuration for the users, for whoever is using the disputing system. So for instance, there are several settings. First of all, how many juries you need and what kind of jury you are looking for. For instance, by credit level, by categories, how much the arbitration fee you are providing, and how urgent is the case. But it's again, we are using a free market policy. Like I mentioned, when a jury got selected, that doesn't necessarily mean that jury is in your case right away. So we will send a push notification to the selected jury, say, hey, there's a case like this, blah, 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 and there's how much money it's involved and how much jury we need and how urgent it is. They will be deciding if they want to accept the case or decline. The more incentive you put into it, the higher chance your case will be selected. For us, as the system designer, as the system developer, we are trying to come up a general system and a more reliable system for all the cases, for urgent cases like you mentioned, and for regular cases.
And as we wrap up our interview here, we're talking about protocols being used for this. Remember the smart contracts that are within the protocol. You're also using NEM, right? Not using Ethereum, so that's a little bit different. And then also tell us or others listening how they can find you across the net. You know, what are your channels? You got Telegram, you got an internet presence, ICO, when's it start, when's it finish, and just a little more information so people would like to contact you. How can they find you and then make contact?
Feel free to contact us if you have any question, and make sure you guys follow our Twitter at Oath Protocol. You can find our Medium sites at Oath Protocol as well. We have all the news updates and all the partnerships announcements, and also some deep analysis of our projects over there. Please go take a look at it, and thanks for having me here. I also want to mention another thing Dave was talking about. So we are actually a chain agnostic protocol that we are not just like deployed on NEM, also providing on Ethereum as well. It's since we are cross-chain protocol, we want to be deployed on most of the public chains. NEM and the Quark chain and the Aeon and the Ethereum and the EOS, all those chains are our targets, and some of them we already signed a strategy partner, so we were providing the system for them for sure. But ideally, we should be deployed on pretty much all the chains.
All right, I've been talking with Yinshu from Oath Protocol, the final piece in the puzzle that will allow finally the entire ecosystem of smart contracts moving forward with tokenizing commodities and dispute resolution, just like we have in the real world. Now it's being formed in the blockchain. So this is it. This is like putting together internet and finally getting a payment processor, again with an interface in an e-commerce store that finally came. But how many years did that take that across the greater internet? Well, we're starting to see the same thing here. And with the push in food prices and commodities prices, I bet that this is going to be fast-tracked. So this whole coupling and ecosystem moving forward lockstep will be our final solution here.